13. Sheree Spencer. Many people tend to automatically think of spousal abuse as a crime that occurs against women and at the hands of men. But the public received a sobering reminder that this is not always the case in 2021, when a British wife was arrested for terrorizing her spouse at their home in Bubwith, East Yorkshire. 45-year-old Sheree Spencer allegedly abused her husband Richard on a regular basis over a 20-year period. She then lied about it while playing victim in front of the police. And while the abuse happened behind closed doors, a lot of it was captured on video by various cameras throughout the house that the couple had installed for monitoring their children. Outside the home, Sheree was a well-respected Ministry of Justice employee with an impeccable work history, which made it all the more shocking when the footage of the abuse was finally discovered. In one instance, she defecated on the floor and forced Richard to clean up the mess. On another occasion, she beat her husband with a wine bottle, leaving his ears permanently disfigured. Based on the videos alone, it was clear that Sheree controlled every aspect of Richard's life and that Richard was utterly terrified of her. She spat on her husband, grabbed him by the throat, beat him, destroyed his belongings, alienated him from his family, and verbally berated him often enough for the neighbors to hear it and grow concerned. Sheree also inflicted injuries that required medical attention on several occasions. The footage was so disturbing that a police officer broke down in tears while watching it. From the outside looking in, it's hard to understand how the abuse went on for so long before Sheree was finally sentenced to prison time for her crimes in early 2023. Speaking with the Daily Mail following her conviction, Richard said that the couple met at a nightclub in 2000. He was drawn in by 22-year-old Sheree's magnetic personality and the attention she showered him with. A whirlwind romance followed, and it took a while for Sheree's violent side to start showing. When Sheree first started to reveal her dark side, she was only nasty once in a while. The rest of the time, she was her usual lovable self. Over the years, her violent personality slowly took over until it became the norm. And while Sheree was mean to begin with, her aggression was clearly exacerbated by her heavy drinking, as she downed as many as 3 bottles of wine per day. By the time the couple married in 2009, Richard was conditioned to tolerate the abuse. And like many victims, he was quick to forgive and make excuses for his wife in hopes that the old Sheree from when they first met would re-emerge. But the violence worsened severely after the pair exchanged their vows and the Spencers went on to have 3 children, which only made the prospect of leaving seem even more impossible to Richard. He was also afraid to speak up because Sheree threatened to falsely accuse him of abuse and publicly damage his character. When the police finally got involved, this was exactly what she tried to do. But the evidence revealed the truth and Sheree was finally brought to justice. Even after Sheree was sentenced to 4 years in prison for her decades-long campaign of terror, Richard was left fearing that he would never fully recover from the mental trauma she'd caused. But he was determined to at least try, and has since focused on rebuilding his life. 12. Yue Emily Yu. In April 2023, a grand jury in Irvine, California, indicted 45-year-old Yue Emily Yu on 3 felony counts of poisoning for allegedly pouring Adrenal-like liquid into her husband's tea. Yu was also indicted on 1 count of felony domestic battery with corporal injury. But the abuse against her husband, 53-year-old Jack Chen, was nothing new, according to prosecutors. They accuse Yu of systematically mistreating the victim over a prolonged period leading up to her arrest. By day, Yu was a dermatologist and a mother who seemed to be no different than any other hardworking and educated professional who puts their family first. But authorities say that she was a much different and more sinister person behind closed doors. Yu's alleged crimes first came to light in 2022 after her husband noticed that his tea tasted strange. During that same period, Jack Chen repeatedly fell ill, leading him to suspect that his wife was poisoning him. In an attempt to find out the truth, he installed hidden cameras in the family's kitchen. On at least 3 separate occasions, the cameras captured suspicious footage that appeared to show Yu pouring a substance out of a liquid drain cleaner bottle into Jack's tea. The victim turned samples of the tainted tea over to the Irvine Police Department, which passed them on to the FBI for testing. Perhaps not surprisingly, the results revealed that the tea contained a substance that was consistent with liquid drain cleaner. According to court documents, Jack suffered from 2 stomach ulcers and a swollen esophagus as a result of the poisoning. Yu was arrested in August 2022, 4 months after her husband first noticed the strange taste in his tea. She pleaded not guilty to the charges and was released from jail after posting a $30,000 bond. Her husband promptly filed for divorce following her arrest, and the judge overseeing the case ordered Yu to stay away from Jack and the couple's children amid the ongoing case. In April 2024, newly released court documents claimed that one of the kids told a school therapist that they were instructed by their mother to lie about the use of the Drano. According to the allegations, the child was afraid to tell the truth because they feared that Yu would do something similar to them that she'd done to their dad. But there are 2 sides to every story, and just like any other criminally accused defendant, Yu is innocent until proven guilty. Following one of her initial hearings, her attorney accused Jack of making up the Drano story and setting his wife up in an attempt to gain custody of their kids. According to the lawyer, Yu used the Drano to unclog a kitchen sink. The outcome of the case remains to be seen. 11. McKenna Newell. A father in West Valley City, Utah, trusted that his twin daughters were in good hands under the care of their nanny, 21-year-old McKenna Newell. Needless to say, he was horrified to discover camera footage of the young woman brutally abusing the girls. The clearly frustrated caretaker could be seen trying to muffle one of the children's cries. She also shook and kicked the girl before waging a similar attack on the little one's sister. The abuse continued, and as you can likely imagine, did nothing to curb the fussing that had triggered Newell's temper in the first place. Newell was arrested in early 2019 after the twins' father turned the horrifying videos over to the police. She admitted that she was the nanny in the footage, but claimed to have no memory of committing the abuse. The accused attacker also confessed that she felt frustrated and didn't know what to do. Anyone with babysitting experience knows that it can be extremely frustrating when a child won't stop crying, and that there's a time when a kid will test their caretaker's patience. But most people would also agree that there's absolutely no excuse for Newell's behavior, and prosecutors felt no differently. Newell was originally hit with 2 felony abuse charges, but eventually pleaded guilty to 1 count of abuse in exchange for getting the other count dropped. She was sentenced to 30 days in jail, 3 years of probation, and 500 hours of community service. The judge also fined her $5,000 and ordered her to undergo anger management classes. $5,000 and 500 hours of unpaid work may seem harsh. This is especially true after Newell's defense attorney told the court that his client was suffering from undiagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder at the time of her crimes, and that she'd shown a proactive desire to work through her issues. But, all things considered, Newell was extremely lucky that the children were not seriously injured, or she would have been looking at a much more serious case and possibly a hard time. One can only hope that she treated the ordeal as a learning experience and pursued another line of work that does not involve caring for others. 10. Big Apple Burglar becomes parents' worst nightmare. Nobody was physically harmed when an intruder broke into a couple's home in Queens, New York at 2:30 a.m. one morning in November 2015. But the victims were nevertheless traumatized when they discovered nanny cam footage of the burglar. He was lurking just steps away from their sleeping children as he prowled through the apartment in search of items to steal. During the 40 minutes the thief spent inside the home, he could be seen crawling on his hands and knees into a bedroom where the entire family was sleeping. He initially managed to scope out the room without waking the couple who were sharing a bed or any of their 3 kids who were sleeping nearby in their own separate beds. But the burglar woke up the children's father when he went to grab a smartphone off a dresser. He fled the scene and was long gone by the time police arrived. Authorities released the chilling footage in hopes that someone would be able to help identify the intruder. But there were no subsequent news updates, indicating that the prowler was most likely never caught. 9. Cruel caretakers. In early 2020, sisters Danielle and Rebecca Hinsley noticed that their 89-year-old grandmother, Beryl Ward, was acting differently. They became especially concerned when they spotted fresh bruises on Ward's face and wrists, and noticed that the senior citizen was afraid of being touched. The sisters saw the grandmother regularly, so they were quick to notice the rapid decline in her health. They began to suspect that the elderly woman was being abused by her caretakers at a nursing home in the English city of Wolverhampton. But because Wall suffered from dementia and was unable to speak, she couldn't explain her injuries or her behavioral changes to her granddaughters. Determined to get to the bottom of the situation, Danielle and Rebecca ordered a picture frame with a hidden camera in it and placed it in Wall's bedroom. Just 4 days later, they discovered a plethora of footage confirming their suspicions of abuse. In the video, 4 of Wall's caretakers could be seen and heard screaming in the senior citizen's face, mocking and berating her, hitting her in the face with a pillow, pinching her, and harming her in other disturbing ways. Danielle Hinsley later told BBC News that her grandmother was naked and confused in a lot of footage. Armed with the horrifying clips, authorities arrested 8 of the care agency's employees. 4 of the defendants were found not guilty at trial, while the other 4 were found guilty of ill treatment and willful neglect. In late 2023, Ame Tunkara, Bridget Idian, Maura Ranti Adafila, and Danny Ohen were sentenced to prison terms ranging from 4 to 6 months. Wall passed away shortly after the guilty verdicts came in, leading her granddaughter Danielle to believe that her grandma had held on long enough to see her abusers brought to justice. Speaking with BBC News after the conclusion of the case, Danielle made it clear that she harbored no ill will toward the nursing home where the abuse occurred. She described the facility's non-abusive staff members as amazing and commended management for immediately firing the perpetrators as soon as the abuse allegations came to light. 8. Melody Felicano Johnson. While stationed in Germany with the United States Air Force in early 2023, Airman Roby Johnson noticed a strange taste in his coffee. At the time, he was in the process of divorcing his wife, 39-year-old Melody Felicano Johnson. But the estranged couple were still living together, leading Roby to suspect that his soon-to-be ex-wife was poisoning his coffee with bleach. To confirm his suspicions, Roby installed hidden cameras in his kitchen and began testing his coffee with a swimming pool chemical kit. He wanted to wait until he and Melody returned to the US to report her to the police, so he focused on gathering evidence. The coffee tested positive for high levels of bleach on multiple occasions, while the tap water repeatedly tested normal. Meanwhile, the hidden cameras captured footage that appeared to show Melody pouring something into Roby's coffee. Upon his return home to Arizona, Roby turned the video over to the police, but the footage was too grainy to identify the chemical that was being poured into his coffee, so the authorities were unwilling to move forward with criminal charges without stronger evidence. Determined to prove his wife's crimes, Roby remained patient and bought more cameras, which he installed throughout the home. It wasn't long before he returned to the police with footage that appeared to show Melody pouring bleach from a big bottle into a smaller container inside their laundry room. She then proceeded into the kitchen and poured the liquid into the coffee maker. The video proved to be a game changer, and prosecutors soon charged Melody with attempted homicide, attempted aggravated assault, and adding poison to a food or drink. According to court documents, Roby believed that she was trying to kill him so she could collect his military benefits. Melody initially maintained her innocence, but ultimately pleaded guilty to 2 counts of adding poison to a food or drink. She faces between 4 months and 2 years in prison for each count, and is due to be sentenced in May of 2024. 7. Shawn Custis. A mother was home alone with her young child in Millburn, New Jersey in 2013 when a man broke into her home and viciously assaulted her. A nanny cam captured footage of the several-minute-long unprovoked attack as the intruder beat, kicked, and threw the woman down a set of stairs. The victim suffered a broken vertebra, a knee injury, broken teeth, and the loss of feeling on one side of her body. She was left unable to work and no longer felt safe in her own home due to the mental trauma inflicted by her attacker. After the nanny cam footage was released to the public, 4 women, including 2 ex-girlfriends, came forward and identified the suspect as 45-year-old Shawn Custis. Authorities charged Custis with a slew of crimes, including attempted murder, aggravated assault, robbery, burglary, criminal restraint, theft, and child endangerment. He already had a lengthy criminal record consisting of 38 arrests and 17 prior felony convictions. Due to the severity of the defendant's past offenses, prosecutors sought to put him away for life. Custis adamantly maintained his innocence throughout his trial, even as all 4 women who identified him in the nanny cam footage took the stand to testify against him. He was ultimately convicted on all counts except for the attempted murder charge. The women's testimony proved crucial in the decision to convict Custis, according to jury foreman Jerome Branham. He told NJ.com that the police did have an obvious bias against the defendant like his lawyer had claimed. It was pretty hard to deny, considering the fact that the same nanny cam footage that helped convict Custis captured a responding officer describing the defendant using racial slurs and other obscenities. Assistant Essex County Prosecutor Jamel Semper also credited members of the public with playing a crucial role in bringing the perpetrator to justice. While the nanny cam footage itself was imperative to the case, the brave individuals who came forward proved invaluable. Semper pushed hard for a conviction on the attempted murder charge, but he later admitted that he knew it would be difficult to prove that Custis intended to kill the victim when he entered her home. Even in the absence of an attempted murder conviction, he urged the judge to sentence Custis to life, stating in court, half measures of leniency haven't worked to deter this defendant. The state's wishes were granted in the form of a life sentence plus 5 years. Custis will have to serve more than 60 years behind bars before being considered for parole, and he'll only see that day if he lives well into his hundreds. He'll almost certainly spend the rest of his life in prison, much to the relief of the people he's harmed. Custis appealed his case, but the original ruling was upheld. 6. Barbara Parker. In 2017, a concerned family friend of a 93-year-old woman noticed that money was disappearing from the senior citizen's residence in Liverpool, England. Determined to find out who was responsible for the missing cash, the friend bought a clock with a hidden camera and placed it inside the elderly woman's home. Soon enough, they discovered footage of the victim's hairdresser Barbara Parker reaching into the nonagenarian's purse when she wasn't looking and taking £40 in cash. Parker had been cutting the victim's hair for more than 6 years and was a trusted person in the woman's life. Needless to say, the victim's friends and family were shocked to learn the identity of the perpetrator, who could be seen rummaging through the senior citizen's bag and clenching the wad of money in her teeth before slipping it into her own purse. The victim was nearby, but given her age and the fact that she trusted Parker, she was oblivious to the theft that was going on in plain sight. The disturbing video garnered more than 3 million views within 2 days of being released to the public. Speaking with the Liverpool Echo, the family friend who set up the camera said that the victim was shaken after learning about the theft. By that point, Parker had been arrested and the elderly woman's loved ones were focused on putting the traumatic incident behind them as soon as possible. Parker was found guilty of stealing the victim's money and was ordered to pay a fine and perform 100 hours of community service. It may seem like a light sentence, but the court of public opinion was far less forgiving. As they say, once something's on the internet, it never truly goes away, which means that the disgraced hairdresser will likely live in the shadow of her disturbing behavior for years to come. 5. David Timothy Moon. Cameras are everywhere these days, so it's a good rule of thumb to always assume you're being filmed whenever you're not in your own home. A former deputy U.S. Marshal named David Timothy Moon clearly was not adhering to this better safe than sorry type of policy when he sniffed a stranger's underwear while touring their home for sale in May of 2019. Footage captured from inside the Phoenix, Arizona residence showed Moon entering a bedroom while the real estate agent tasked with selling the home was in another room. Moon could be seen opening a closet before making his way over to a hamper in the corner. He pulled a pair of dirty underwear out of the hamper and held them in close proximity to his face before putting the panties back and leaving the room. As if sniffing an unsuspecting stranger's underwear once wasn't bad enough, Moon returned to the room a few minutes later and did it again. This time, he noticed that he was on camera and uttered, "God damn it," while covering his mouth. It was as if Moon instantly knew that it was only a matter of time before his secretive sniffing was discovered, and he was right. The homeowner saw the footage after receiving an alert on his phone and immediately turned the video over to the police. Moon was arrested on suspicion of felony trespassing and also lost his job of 24 years. He took a deal and pleaded guilty to a reduced misdemeanor trespassing charge and was spared from prison time. The judge sentenced him to 2 years of unsupervised probation and allowed him to serve the sentence in his home state of Texas. It may seem like Moon got a slap on the wrist for a really disturbing crime, and it's probably true. After all, the victim's household had no choice but to live with feeling traumatized and unsafe while they worried about the possibility of Moon returning to their residence. In court, the homeowner told the judge that he upgraded his family's home security system after the incident. When he found out that Moon lost his job, he became especially fearful that the accused underwear sniffer would take on a nothing-to-lose mentality and seek revenge against him for calling the cops. In an attempt to better understand Moon's behavior, local station ABC 15 consulted with forensic psychologist John Delator, who was not involved in the case. After viewing the footage, Delator described Moon's actions as a compulsion. He stated, in his own words, that the man in the video was not someone who was unsure about what he was into, but that he knew immediately when he found something that attracted him in an unhealthy way. The news station asked the U.S. Marshals Service if Moon had been accused of similar behavior in the past, but the spokesperson refused to go into detail, beyond issuing a statement that the agency took the allegations against Moon seriously. ABC 15 journalists also got in touch with an ex-girlfriend of Moon, who claimed that he threw out his computer when he found out that the police in Phoenix were looking for him. The woman also accused Moon of including a suspicious but not necessarily criminal video in an email he sent to himself. During his sentencing hearing, Moon described his actions as the stupidest thing he'd ever done in his life. The prosecution urged the judge to order Moon to undergo an evaluation and any recommended treatment, but the judge declined the request. The judge noted that Moon seemed sincere in his remorse and cited his prior military service and a lack of criminal record as mitigating factors. 4. Rose Blaze and Yashika Jones. In 2014, Florida resident Dale Wilson noticed suspicious bruises on his 76-year-old father, who suffered from Alzheimer's disease. At the time, the elderly man was living in the Palm Gardens nursing home in Winter Haven, leading Wilson to suspect that his dad was being abused by staff members. But because the senior citizen was no longer able to communicate verbally, getting to the bottom of the situation was more complicated than simply asking him about the source of his injuries. Determined to figure out what was going on, Wilson installed a hidden camera in the elderly man's room at the nursing home. Horrifying footage showed employees beating, slapping, restraining, and taunting the victim as he lay in bed. The abusers also stomped on the old man's feet, made punching motions toward his head to scare him, and forced him to punch himself in the face. Wilson turned the video over to the nursing home's management and the police, and an investigation was launched. 6 employees were suspended, and certified nursing assistants Rose Dorian Blaze and Yashika Jones were charged with battery of a person over 65. Following the arrests, Wilson told local reporters that he apologized to his father for the torment he'd suffered at the suspect's hands. Even though he knew his dad couldn't respond to his apology and may not have even understood it, he felt that it was necessary to tell his father that he was unaware of the abuse and that it would never happen again. In late 2015, Yashika Jones pleaded guilty to battery on an elderly person. She was sentenced to 5 years of probation and was banned from having any contact with the victim's family, aside from an apology letter that the judge ordered her to write. The judge also ordered Jones to forfeit her CNA license and banned her from working as a caretaker in any capacity. Rose Blaze also pleaded guilty to battery on an elderly person. In early 2016, she was sentenced to 5 months in jail. The judge also ordered her to attend a 26-week batterers intervention program, to write an apology letter to the victim's family, but otherwise have no contact, and to forfeit her CNA license. Blaze was also banned from working as a caretaker. One main question that people ask when it comes to elder abuse is why anyone would treat a helpless elderly person so cruelly. In this case, like many others, the perpetrators never revealed why they abused the victim. 3. Aiden Peel. In 2021, 24-year-old Aiden Peel got so drunk during a night out in Liverpool, England, that he was reduced to crawling and was unable to talk by the time he arrived home. Concerned for his well-being, his live-in girlfriend attempted to find out what exactly was wrong with him. She'd never seen Peel in such an obliterated state and was genuinely worried about him. So she took his phone with the intention of contacting his friends and asking them what had taken that night. But the young woman's concern shifted into a totally different realm when she inadvertently stumbled upon some disturbing footage. The video showed a woman using the bathroom, undressing and drying off after a shower, totally unaware she was being filmed. Peel took certain measures to stealthily record the video, which had been captured between 5 and 6 weeks earlier. but he could be seen both setting up and retrieving the camera, leaving no room for doubt about his role in filming the disturbing 16-minute clip. When confronted by his girlfriend, Peel claimed that he recorded the footage as a joke after being inspired by a prank he saw on YouTube. But there was nothing funny about the situation, regardless of whether he was being truthful or not. Knowing there was no valid excuse for Peel's voyeurism, his girlfriend ended the relationship and reported him to the police. In addition to discovering the video, the traumatized young woman came across other upsetting information regarding Peel's activities. But the details were considered irrelevant to his alleged crimes. After speaking with the girlfriend and the victim seen in the video, police arrested Peel on suspicion of voyeurism. Prosecutors argued that the defendant took considerable time and effort to plan his crime. Peel made sure that the camera wouldn't be noticed and set it up ahead of time, which indicated that he knew what he was trying to film and that he acted with intent. Peel denied any wrongdoing and took the case to trial, sticking to his story about the video being the result of a harmless joke gone wrong. But the jury was no more keen to buy his claims of innocence than his ex-girlfriend. As a result, he was found guilty as charged. During his sentencing hearing, Peel's defense attorney implored the judge to spare him from prison time and to instead sentence him to probation. The attorney cited Peel's lack of a criminal history and the fact that he had a baby on the way with his new girlfriend. The lawyer painted his client out as a selfless family man who helped his elders and would benefit from minimal disruption to his life. He also blamed Peel's actions on his lack of insight, distorted thinking, and behavior. He described the defendant as very young, despite the fact that Peel was a full-grown legal adult when he committed his sickening crime. Thankfully, the judge saw the seriousness of Peel's actions and decided not to go easy on him despite his lack of prior convictions. He sentenced the defendant to 9 months in prison, ordered him to register as a predator for 10 years, and issued a 5-year restraining order, banning Peel from contacting or going near the victim. While handing down the punishment, the judge noted how Peel's actions had a seemingly profound effect on the woman, who was too traumatized to have her impact statement read in court. 2. Casey Brengle. In 2019, Rosie Brown hired 26-year-old Casey Brengle to look after her 2 dogs at her South Bay, California home while she attended a relative's wedding in Louisiana. As part of the gig, Brengle agreed to stay at Brown's house for 4 days to ensure that the high-maintenance pets, Penny and Daisy, got the care and attention they needed. But she also allegedly made time to entertain her boyfriend at the home, even though having guests was not part of the agreement. Brown discovered the unapproved visit when she received an alert from her doggy camera. She watched in real time as the stark-naked pet sitter led a man into Brown's bedroom. The couple was also seen kissing before Brengle laid on Brown's couch without her clothes on. Brengle's boyfriend was seen coming and going from Brown's home on several more occasions throughout the duration of the dog-sitting gig. In one instance, Brengle allegedly locked Penny and Daisy out of the master bedroom while she was in there with her boyfriend. On another occasion, Brengle and her boyfriend could be seen going from the master bedroom to a guest bedroom. Brown also accused Brengle of failing to take Penny and Daisy out for 30 to 60-minute walks as promised, instead taking them out for just a few minutes to use the bathroom. The horrified homeowner hired Brengle through a dog walking and pet sitting app called Wag. And while it goes without saying that it's important to be careful when hiring a stranger to look after one's home and pets, Brengle seemed like a trustworthy candidate. She had over 200 5-star reviews, and Brown had reportedly hired her before with no problems. Brown had no reason to believe anything would go wrong during her trip to Louisiana. She'd even allegedly allowed Brengle to have her boyfriend over during a previous pet-sitting gig. But she didn't approve the visits that occurred during her most recent trip, and she certainly wasn't okay with Brengle lounging around her home in the buff. According to WAG's guidelines, sitters are prohibited from receiving visitors while pet-sitting inside a client's home. Yet Brengle welcomed her boyfriend and her parents into Brown's residence during her time there. In addition to being blown away by the sheer brazenness of the dog sitter's actions, Brown was shocked and confused because she'd told Brengle about the doggy cam. So Brengle either forgot about it or perhaps didn't care that she was being recorded. Brengle eventually agreed to speak with ABC's 7's I-Team several weeks after the discovery of the disturbing video. She denied that she and her boyfriend were being intimate inside the bedrooms, claiming that she took off her clothes because it was hot and because she simply doesn't like wearing clothing. When an I-Team investigator told Brengle that Brown no longer sits on her couch after seeing her laying on it naked, she said she felt terrible. Brengle said that she did act intentionally or out of malice, but that unfortunately did not fix the problem. And while Wag offered to foot the bill for a locksmith and professional cleaning services, it's likely a safe bet that Brown stopped using their services for her dog-sitting needs. And now for number 1. But if you want to hear even more stories, stay tuned for some extra content that you might have missed. 1. Jesus Torres Hernandez. An Arizona woman was watching a live nanny cam feed of her apartment in Tempe in early 2020 when a handyman entered the residence and sifted through her belongings. Because there were no memory cards in the camera at the time, the victim scrambled to capture screenshots of the maintenance worker's creepy behavior. The photos appeared to show the handyman going through her underwear drawer and handling her delicates. The victim also claimed that the man sniffed her panties, although she didn't manage to capture a screenshot of the disturbing indulgence. Identified by the police as 45-year-old Jesus Torres Hernandez, the worker reportedly entered the apartment to carry out a legitimate work order to change an air filter. But authorities said that his behavior became criminal when he began going through the woman's things. According to law enforcement, the accused panty sniffer initially tried to explain away his actions by claiming that he was preparing the apartment for treatment by an exterminator. He later admitted to picking up the underwear and looking at them, but he denied smelling them. In the end, Hernandez was charged with felony trespassing, and while the outcome of the case is unclear, it's likely safe to assume that the embarrassment he suffered from having the arrest broadcast all over the news was infinitely worse than any legal consequences he faced.
At number 9, Lee Nolan. In 2015, a 48-year-old British transient named Lee Nolan befriended 24-year-old Caitlin Parker, who constantly suffered from learning disabilities but lived independently with help from social services. She let Nolan into her home one day, and when he asked if he could style her hair, she responded saying, "Only gay men do hair." This backhanded comment sent Nolan into an uncontrolled rage. He strangled Caitlin to death with the cord of an electric hair straightener. The next day, he admitted to what he did to an acquaintance and pulled back the rear seat of his car, revealing human remains in the trunk. Nolan then visited another friend and described in great detail how he murdered Caitlin. The friend told police that Lee's eyes were bulging when he explained his crimes, and he had a crazed look on his face. She had never seen him like that before and said it seemed like he wanted to show people the young woman's body as if to show off. After receiving reports of Nolan's disturbing behavior, police tried to pull him over. He abandoned his car and they quickly found Caitlin's remains. During questioning, he claimed he had recently killed as many as 6 people, but investigators found no evidence of any other crimes besides Caitlin. At his trial, Nolan initially argued that he wasn't fully responsible for the murder due to mental illnesses. He changed his plea to guilty after 2 court-ordered mental evaluations concluded that he was completely sane when he committed the crime. Lee Nolan was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 18 years for killing his friend. At number 8, Jeremy Lee Paulie. After receiving a bizarre tip in 2022 about a local resident who supposedly collected human body parts, police in East Pennsboro, Pennsylvania went to the home of 40-year-old Jeremy Lee Paulie. The self-described collector of oddities admitted to having a few human body pieces in his possession and said that he obtained them through legal means. Paulie's hobby was certainly strange, but not inherently illegal. After finding no evidence of a crime, the officers left the scene. But a second tip soon came in, claiming that some newer remains were at Paulie's home. Police returned and found several buckets filled with odd body parts, including half a human head, 2 brains, a heart, a kidney, livers, lungs, and more. Not long after that, state and federal authorities intercepted packages that were addressed to Paulie from a woman living in Arkansas. He allegedly told detectives that he had arranged to purchase the body organs for $4,000 on Facebook Messenger, and he planned to resell them through a macabre online marketplace that he manages. The woman he received the remains from was a mortuary employee who stole body parts intended for donation and sold them illegally. District Attorney Sean McCormick told CBS News that this was one of the most bizarre cases he's ever investigated throughout his 33-year career. Paulie was charged with abuse of a corpse, receiving stolen property, and dealing in proceeds of unlawful activities. The case is ongoing, so we'll have to wait and see what the sentence this organ collector will get. At number 7, Shawn Bowden and Emily Craig. Police in North Charleston, South Carolina were called to a local Home Depot store one morning in 2013 after someone reported seeing a man and a woman enter an outdoor display shed. The pair sparked suspicions when they closed the shed's door behind them and stayed inside for an unusually long time. Officers opened the door to find a partially clothed woman and a man with his pants down halfway to his knees, openly exposing his privates. According to a police report obtained by the Smoking Gun, it became evident during the questioning that the couple used the shed to engage in intimate acts. Authorities charged 31-year-old Shawn Bowden and 20-year-old Emily Craig with disorderly conduct for creating alarm and being a nuisance, and rightly so, too. Craig received an additional charge for providing police with a false name and birth date at first. She was found guilty of both crimes and sentenced to time served. Bowden faced an additional charge of indecent exposure for having his genitals hanging out in public. When he failed to show up to court, the case was tried anyway and he was convicted for both charges. The judge sentenced him to serve 2 years concurrent 30-day jail sentences and issued a bench warrant for his arrest. At number 6, human skull collectors. In 2020, police in the Nigerian town of Lejubu Iligbo got a call about a man carrying a bag that was suspected to have stolen property inside. When someone confronted him about it, he allegedly dropped the container onto the ground and ran away. Inside the bag, detectives found 4 human skulls, 2 hands that seemed like they were mummified, and 3 jaw bones. Officers arrested the suspect, 55-year-old Yasiru Salisu, who reportedly confessed to stealing the body parts from a nearby cemetery. He named an accomplice who was still at large when the story first broke. In another bizarre case from 2021, a man contacted police in Nigeria's Delta State with claims that a grave robber had dug up his deceased sister's grave and stolen her skull. An investigation led detectives to a 60-year-old native doctor named Godfrey Akpuji, who had 2 human skulls when he was arrested. Akpuji allegedly admitted that he got one of the skulls from another doctor. In an unrelated incident that happened that same week, police pulled over and searched a vehicle with 3 people inside. Officers found a container of human blood and took the trio in for further questioning. The suspects allegedly confessed to murdering several people in a neighboring state and said they were on their way to see a native doctor with plans to use the blood for ritualistic purposes. Number 5, Jamie Lee Cooke and Miguel Glorioso. While serving time at a Louisiana prison in 2018, 20-year-old Miguel Camille Glorioso entered into an inmate trustee program, which let him work outside the jail as a janitor for the Rapides Parish Courthouse. But he allegedly misused this small bit of freedom by hooking up with a woman in one of the government building stairwells. An employee heard some kind of commotion on the 5th floor and discovered Glorioso and a young woman in the middle of the act. The pair quickly fled the scene on foot but were soon apprehended and charged with obscenity. The girl, who was identified as 19-year-old Jamie Lee Cooke, was already facing a marijuana charge in an unrelated case, but she was lucky enough to have her bail amount set low and was able to bond out. Authorities were far less accommodating towards Glorioso, who lost his position in the trustee program and was sent back to his jail cell. He was just a few months into an 8-year sentence after having his probation revoked for a previous drug charge when he obtained his trustee status. And while being in prison is never a good thing, there are benefits and privileges to being a trustee, which would have made Glorioso's time behind bars a little more bearable. Unfortunately, when he was given that inch of freedom, he took it way too far by a mile. Number 4, Kelly Simpson. Investigators with the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office in Florida needed to find a missing and endangered teen in 2022 after he got into an argument with his family over stolen money. He left the home without taking his phone, medication, or bank card and failed to go to school the next day. Officers visited a residence in Punta Gorda where the young man was last seen and questioned the people there. Someone told them that he had been picked up by some woman named Kelly. Investigators quickly learned that the teen constantly talked about one of his teachers, 31-year-old Kelly Simpson. They went to her house in Port Charlotte and asked about the situation. Simpson claimed she had picked up the boy, but she had dropped him off at a gas station and hadn't seen him since. But she wouldn't let police look inside her home. She finally relented when the officers told her that she could possibly be charged with a crime for refusing to let them in. A few moments later, she went back inside and sent the teen out. He admitted that he had Simpson pick him up and take him to her home. When he showed her a Facebook post from the sheriff's office about his disappearance, she told him they would deal with it the next day. He spent the night there, but there was no indications in the arrest report that anything inappropriate happened between the two. Simpson was charged with interfering with the custody of a minor and was placed on administrative leave from her job, pending the outcome of the ongoing case. Number 3, Eric Edgar Cooke. From the outside looking in, Eric Edgar Cooke was a normal husband and father. He married his wife Sally during the 1950s at the age of 22, and they went on to have 7 kids in their hometown of Perth, Australia. But while he seemed like a family man on the surface, Cooke was driven by deeply disturbing, inhumane urges. Most of his early crimes were for non-violent offenses like trespassing and theft. His defiant activities took a dark turn, though, starting in 1959, when he broke into the home of a young woman named Penina Berkman through her bedroom window and violently stabbed her to death. Cooke murdered at least 7 more people over the next 4 years, while also committing multiple non-fatal violent crimes. He used several weapons, including knives, scissors, and an axe, and his motives for killing remain foggy to this day. In one instance, he knocked on a man's door and shot him dead for no obvious reason. And unlike most serial killers, he didn't target a certain type of victim either. Because the murders seemed to have very little in common, law enforcement didn't think a serial killer was on the loose. 2 men even did time behind bars for getting falsely convicted of murders Cooke committed. Investigators finally latched onto a solid lead in 1963 when they found a rifle hidden in a few bushes. Ballistics tests revealed that it was the same gun used to recently murdered 18-year-old Shirley Martha McLeod. Police replaced the rifle with a similar-looking but inoperable gun and kept an eye on the bushes from a hideout they built nearby. A few weeks later, Cooke showed up in the middle of the night and tried to pick the gun up from its hiding spot. He was immediately arrested and taken into the police station, where he initially denied killing Miss McLeod. But detectives got him to crack under a bit more pressure. He admitted to McLeod's murder and confessed to 7 more, 14 attempted murders and multiple other crimes. Cooke pleaded not guilty to all charges by reason of insanity, but a court-ordered evaluation revealed that he was, in fact, sane. He received the death penalty and chose not to appeal the punishment. And in 1964, he became the last man in history to be executed by hanging in Western Australia. Number 2, James Isaac Crabtree. While serving as the municipal prosecuting attorney for Jefferson County, Missouri in 2021, James Isaac Crabtree met with a woman with several pending criminal charges at his office later in the evening. The woman secretly recorded the conversation they had, which started off seemingly innocently and friendly, as she expressed that she wanted to negotiate the outcome of her case in hopes of avoiding jail time. Things took a bizarre turn, though, when Crabtree asked her if she was wearing a wire. She said no, and he explained that he would try to get some of her charges dropped, but was looking for a new friend. The married father of 5 went on to say how he could be a very valuable friend to the woman and was looking for a no-strings-attached arrangement with someone on the side. You can likely read between the lines here. He handed her $200 and continued to ask if she was interested. The woman said she wasn't a prostitute and had never done anything like this before. Crabtree insisted he was just trying to help her out, but he could also be heard on the recording making advances and trying to kiss her. The victim reported the misconduct and shared the audio with federal investigators. When questioned by the FBI, Crabtree denied ever kissing or touching the woman. He later admitted to having inappropriate contact with her and pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor civil rights charge and a felony count for lying to feds. He faces up to a year in prison for the misdemeanor, along with a possible fine of $100,000. Crabtree could spend up to 5 years behind bars for the felony charge, which carries a fine of almost $500,000. And at number 1, Wesley Brownlee. Over a 3-month period from early July to late September 2022, 5 innocent civilians were murdered in Stockton, California at the hands of a complete stranger. The first victim was killed in the middle of the night on July 8th when 35-year-old Paul Yaw was shot dead in a park while simply minding his own business. About a month later, 43-year-old Salvador Debudi Jr. was gunned down in the parking lot of a fast food restaurant. 21-year-old Jonathan Rodriguez, 52-year-old Juan Carranza Cruz, and 54-year-old Lawrence Lopez Jr. were also shot and killed. The unprovoked murders left the community stunned and terrified, especially after learning that the police believed the crimes were carried out by a serial killer. None of the victims were robbed, indicating that the shooter just wanted a taste for blood. Police worked diligently to catch the suspect before he struck again. They began surveilling a 43-year-old truck driver named Wesley Brownlee after getting several tips about him. One night they saw him get out of his vehicle at a public park wearing dark clothes and a face mask. Investigators watched as he walked toward a man nearby. Realizing that the suspect could be looking for his next victim, officers stopped the situation before it could go any further and took Brownlee into custody. He was charged with 3 counts of murder and will likely face more charges as authorities continue their investigation. San Joaquin County District Attorney Tori Weber Salazar told People magazine that she credited good old-fashioned detective work and community involvement for Brownlee's capture.
Thanks for watching. What would hurt more? If several of your closest friends talk some seriously harsh crap about how annoying you can be sometimes without knowing that they were on camera, or if you caught your best friend stealing a small amount of cash out of your wallet during a visit to your home? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you next time.